Cheers! Doctor Who's 50. Welcome back to my tier list series, and today we are tier listing all of series 7 of Doctor Who from 2012 to 2013. Now, in celebration of the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, I have obviously got a nice glass of scotch. It is not actually real scotch, even though I was really looking forward to having a glass of scotch for this video, but I'm filming this at 9 in the morning. There's no way I'm having scotch at 9 in the morning, I'm sorry. So this is not actually scotch, nor any kind of alcohol. Kind of disappointed about it, but I'll have one later. So when I was rewatching series 7, I actually watched 7A, the first 5 episodes, in reverse order, because I like the fan theory that the Doctor actually did those in reverse order to what we see, where he went backwards in time along Amy and Rory's timeline to spend more time with them before they were taken by the angels. So I watched it in reverse order for the first time, but I will be doing this tier list in the correct series order, just to make it easier for everyone. So let's begin with episode 1, Asylum of the Daleks. So this episode got a 4, which I did sort of go back and forward on as to whether it should be a 3, but to be honest, there's bits about this episode that I like enough, so I gave it a 4. First things first though, I do not like the premise of an asylum for the Daleks. It makes absolutely no sense. We've seen Daleks killing each other before in Victory of the Daleks, the 11th Doctor's first Dalek episode. They literally had Daleks which were not pure enough for Dalek kind, so they were killed by the other Daleks. It makes no sense that they're saying, oh, because Daleks are so beautiful and their hatred's so lovely that we can't possibly kill them. No. We've seen that many times. How many Dalek civil wars have we seen in Doctor Who so far? There have been quite a few, okay, in both classic and New Who eras. I don't understand this. Anyway, it should have been an asylum for the Cybermen. Makes way more sense. And the whole converting Oswin Oswald into a Cyberman would have made more sense than converting her into a Dalek. I know we have seen humans converted into Daleks before, but just considering how much the Daleks care about purity and whatnot, usually when we see the Daleks converting humans, it's not when they have loads of Daleks to spare, it's when they are running low on numbers and need more, and therefore they convert humans. But with this, they had an entire parliament of Daleks, which meant they had their whole fleets and they were fine. So converting Oswald into a Dalek just doesn't make much sense in this time. Also with this episode, we have Amy and Rory having broken up and divorced, which I hate. It was unnecessary conflict just for the sake of it, and it's all resolved by the end of the episode. It came out of nowhere. I know we had the Pond Life short online, but for people like me, for instance, who didn't see that first time around, it comes out of nowhere. And then it's all resolved by the end of the episode, as I say, so it's just pointless. And also Amy saying that Rory waiting 2,000 years as a piece of plastic outside of a box that she didn't even need protection outside of said box from. She didn't even need protection while she was in the box. Her saying that that is nothing compared to her giving him up. Fuck you, Amy. Like, what? No, Rory is right, okay? King Rory is always right. He definitely loves Amy more than she loves him. He waited 2,000 years for that woman. She couldn't wait 36 years before she lost all hope on him and the Doctor. No, Amy, no, fuck off. We meet the first Clara Splinter in this episode, Oswin Oswald, and I really like her, to be honest. I think she was a really fun and intriguing character and a really interesting way of bringing in the new companion, because we didn't know that she was not the proper Clara at the time. We were very confused as to why the new companion was being brought in this episode, but as a different character. We didn't realise it was the same character, but a Splinter. Like, obviously there's a big mystery with the whole season, which I feel like they could have done more with in the first half, not gonna lie. But to be honest, I would have been quite happy with Oswin being the main Clara, really. Would have been perfectly happy with that one. Obviously we know Victorian Clara is the one I love the most, but I would have been perfectly happy with Oswin Oswald being there. Also with Oswin, I have to say that it is quite intriguing that she's written almost like a post-Series 7 Clara. I think it's actually quite good because obviously this is Clara after Series 7 when she's flown through the Doctor's timeline and created splinters of herself. So it is a post-Series 7 Clara. So the fact that she feels written as if she's meant to be that way is actually really quite good. And the fact that she held on to her love and her willpower throughout the Dalek conversion is really quite something as well. If the finale of Series 7 doesn't tell people how strong a character Clara is, this episode should. Withstanding a Dalek conversion or a cyber conversion, you've got to have a lot of inner strength to do that, and Clara clearly does. She kept hold of her love, her humour, her kindness all the way through. She beat the Daleks single-handed. It's actually really heartbreaking when she gets so close to escaping and then we find out she's actually a Dalek. Why she's a Dalek in a padded cell, I don't understand, because Daleks have the metal casings. Why does she need a padded cell? That makes absolutely no sense. But I think it's really, really sad, that whole scene when she finds out she's a Dalek, and yeah, it's a lot. Only thing with that is I do wish that Jenna had have done the Dalek voice instead of Nicholas Briggs, because I feel like that would have had a bit more emotion in the scene with the Dalek voice, because we would have been able to hear it's still her. And then maybe it could have gone into Nicholas Briggs's voice as she started saying exterminate, and then gone back to her when she was her again, sort of thing. But yeah, I think that Jenna doing the voice for the Dalek on that occasion would have been a bit more impactful, at least for me. Anyway, tiering this one, I think I'm gonna put this into upgrade in progress. There were quite a few things that I wasn't so keen on. There were a few things that I thought was enjoyable enough, but yeah, overall as a series opener, I think it's a bit weak, but as a general episode of Doctor Who, it's fine. I just think upgrade in progress. And the MVP of the episode is Oswin Oswald. Next up is Dinosaurs in a Spaceship. So this episode got a 3, and I think it's okay. It's not really an episode that I would willingly choose to go back to. I don't really enjoy it that much. I remember the first time I watched the promo for the episode, just thinking, what the actual hell are we doing now? The Doctor is riding dinosaurs in a spaceship. I feel like someone just took the title and went, this sounds great, and then they made this. I will say though that this episode introduced us to Brian Williams, and that man can do no wrong. I love Brian Williams, him and his trusty trowel. I love Brian Williams, he is a great character, great addition to the Amy Pond and Rory Williams lore. And where are the series of audio adventures for Brian's log? And I don't mean Brian's log from a later episode that we'll get to. I mean Brian's log as in from this episode, where he clearly goes on adventures with the Doctor between the end of this episode and the next episode. Because he sent Amy and Rory those postcards, including one from Siluria. So clearly he went on adventures with the Doctor. So where is my series of audio adventures of Eleven and Brian? Give them to me now, please. Also great is Solomon, the villain. I think he's a really good villain. He's just evil. He's just a capitalist monster, and I hate him, and it's brilliant. He's so well played and so well written. I just think that he is a great villain. Not every villain needs a sad backstory or some tragic reason that they are doing these evil things. They're not actually evil, it's just how they're perceived. No, no, no. A lot of people, most people are just bad, okay? Most people who do bad things are just bad people, and they know they're doing bad things and they don't care. Or they just like it a lot. That happens, that's life. So I like seeing villains who are just bad. Although the Doctor outright killing him at the end is insane. I like the teen splits in the episode with the Doctor and the Williamses and Amy with Nefertiti and Riddell, though I don't really see the point or the need for Nefertiti or Riddell in this story. They just seem like they're there for the sake of being there. I don't really see the need for them. Even when Nefertiti is used by Solomon as a bargaining chip, she's not that unique. She's not the first or the last Queen of Egypt. So why was she so special and unique and all that? I don't understand why Solomon would want her. And especially since she's just one of many, many queens of Earth. I just don't understand that bit. And also Riddell, why is the Doctor even friends with him? He's a big game hunter. He hunts for sport. That is completely against what the Doctor cares about, right? Like, I just don't understand that friendship. That one to me is worse than the Doctor with Winston Churchill. All that being said, I'm going to put Dinosaurs on a Spaceship into Wibbly Wobbly. I just don't like it. And the MVP for the episode is Nefertiti. I may not have seen the need for her character, but I did like her character. Next up is A Town Called Mercy. This episode got a 4, and I do like the fact that they used a lot of Western tropes in this one. I don't think it's the best Western that Doctor Who's ever done. That trophy clearly goes to the Gunfighters, but I do think it's a decent one. It's another episode with a big moral dilemma in it, and it's one that's much closer to the Doctor's own hearts, so I think that really works well with the conflict of the episode. And it allows for a lot of good conversations around that topic as well. And the Doctor, especially in this episode, was brilliant. I think Matt Smith played it really well in the episode with the absolute rage he has at Carla Jex. Especially with that scene at the town line when Amy says, "We don't do this, what are you doing? You've been alone for too long." And the Doctor says, "Today I'm honouring the victims first." Or because of my mercy, all the victims of the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, all these people, they're just gone, and all the bad guys are allowed to just carry on and hurt more people. But today I'm honouring the victims. I loved that little speech. It kind of doesn't have the same impact when 5 seconds later he brings College back over the line, but obviously that's the Doctor. He's not going to actually kill someone, except in the last episode where he literally killed Solomon, and that came before this one by Amy Moore's perspective, so... But either way, I think overall it was good for that. The only thing I wish with this episode is that there had been a Clara Splinter. And I don't mean as a main character in the story. She doesn't need to be vital. I just want to see Jenna Coleman in the background of a crowd shot somewhere, just wearing a Western outfit, just in the background. She's just there. I just feel like 7A should have had a Clara Splinter in every episode, just there. Just in the background somewhere. She doesn't need to be front and centre. She doesn't need to be a main character. She doesn't need to have a line. Just there. So that when you do a rewatch, you can say, oh my gosh, there she is. There she is. There she is. Obviously, they couldn't do that with previous seasons, but they could do it with this season. And I think that it would make more sense leading up to the whole Great Intelligence arc that the Clara Splinters would be much more present in the Doctor's lifetime. Although, honestly, I do still wish that Amy and Rory had finished their time in the TARDIS in the God Complex and then just appeared in the last 2 episodes in the Christmas special and that's it. But they would have finished their proper time in the TARDIS in the God Complex, because that would have been better for me. The Impossible Girl mystery box in this series I actually quite liked, but I feel like it should have been from the start of the series all the way through, as opposed to the Doctor not realising there's a mystery until the Snowmen episode. The Doctor could have been alone for the first 5 episodes of this series, meeting different versions of Clara in the first 5 episodes, until in the Bells of St. John he finally meets one who doesn't die. And then she becomes the real Clara, and so on and so on. This would have meant that Jenna would have had a full season with 11 as the Doctor, and I think that would have worked really nicely for actually getting used to that dynamic before it changed. Not that I like them together because of the constant flirting and the whole will they won't they nonsense, because I'm so sick of that with Doctor companion relationships. Even when it's the night before someone's wedding, they're still doing it. I hate it. But I just think that, for me, that would have worked better. Although for me, I would have preferred if Jenna had left at the end of Series 8 and then had the Christmas special as her final episode, and then Series 9 had been just the Doctor alone. And then we would have had 2 seasons with Bill in Series 10 and then Series 11, because Capaldi in my head stays for another season. Back to this episode, I'm going to put A Town Called Mercy into... Okay, so here's the thing. It's not really my favourite of the episodes of Doctor Who. It's not an episode that I would choose to put on. However, because of how they deal with the moral dilemma in the episode and everything with that, I'm going to put it into Fantastic. And the MVP of the episode is Sadie. Next up is The Power of 3. And The Power of 3 got a power of 2. I do not like this episode. It is nonsensical and stupid, and I don't understand how this could have been resolved if the actor hadn't have left halfway through filming. The guy who played the villain, the Shakri guy, just sort of left one day and didn't come back or something, and they had to do a quick rewrite. But that just affects the ending, doesn't it? So how does that mean that anything before it would have been better? I don't understand how the original script would have fixed that. I'd love to see the original script so that I can actually judge properly on that, because at the moment I can't see how it would have been any better if the Shakri guy had have stayed for the actual filming. Honestly, everything in this episode is just so slowly paced, and then the villain appears, then disappears, and that's it. And then the Doctor just resolves the issue instantly. I just don't understand this episode. It doesn't work for me at all. Overall, the episode does have some fun moments with the Doctor and the Ponds, but really it's just dull. There's nothing to it. The slow invasion could have been a decent idea, but it's just not. I feel like if you wanted to do something like this, it should have been a season-long arc, so the cubes are just always there. Maybe it's the beginning episode, and then the Doctor has to stay in one place throughout the series to keep an eye on these cubes with everyone, and the adventures happen on Earth or whatnot, like in the 3rd Doctor era, when he's just on Earth. That sort of thing. And then the final episode could have been the big finale of the villains introduced and all this sort of stuff. Or the villain gets introduced at the end of the penultimate episode leading into the finale. But yeah, as a single episode, this concept just doesn't work. I much rather would have seen the episode of the Zygon ship in the Savoy, or Amy marrying Henry VIII by accident. Would have much rather seen either of those as an episode rather than this. Overall, this episode's going to Skara Sewers. The only good thing about the episode really is Kate Lethbridge-Stewart's introduction. I like Kate, so it's nice that she was introduced. That's about what it's got going for it, really. And the MVP of the episode is Brian Williams. Bless Brian. I love him. He's just so wonderful. Why did we not get a season of Brian as Eleven's companion? They were a perfect pair! Next up is The Angels Take Manhattan. Okay, so I know I'm going to get hated over this one, but this episode also got a 2. I'm sorry, this is my opinion. I think it's highly overrated as an episode, purely just because this is when Amy and Rory leave. Let's just jump to the end here. The Amy and Rory jump from the building is truly emotional. The music around it as well just heightens that so much. It's a beautiful scene. But that's how their story should have ended. Not with them dying, obviously. With them jumping off the building, the paradox being created, and them beating the angels. And then they decide, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, Doctor, because they'd already decided in the Power of Three that they liked their life, that they wanted to just do Earth stuff. So why not just leave? Killing them off was so unnecessary, and they weren't even killed off. There are countless times when the Doctor goes to New York and could have saved them. And in Series 9, one of the Christmas specials in Series 9, the Doctor even invents a little doodad, well, a big doodad, to close all the time distortions in New York, which means that he could have at any point gone back and brought Amy and Rory back to their own time, because he always could have created that device. It's just, I just don't like it. I don't like the premise of them leaving, okay? And I don't like the episode at all. I can discount all the emotional moments of the episode because I don't like the episode. The whole fixed point thing is bullshit. I'm sure I've mentioned before about my issue with fixed points and flux points. And the fact that you read something in a book or on a gravestone and suddenly it's fixed. No, I don't like that at all. I don't like that at all at all. I think that's stupid. Just because one person happens to read something doesn't mean that it's a fixed point. I don't like that. I don't like that explanation at all. And obviously the additions to the angel law, again, I hate it. The premise of them having a human farm is interesting. That is an interesting concept. But the Statue of Liberty is a fucking step too far. Several steps too far. That is just so far past too far that you can't even see the line that says, hold back, you're going too far. It's fucking ludicrous. Are you seriously telling me that in the city that never sleeps, not a single person happened to see the fucking Statue of Liberty move across Manhattan? There were footsteps. Everyone heard the footsteps. The fucking place would have shaken like an earthquake. A mini earthquake, but still. There is no fucking way that not a single person looked up at that thing, okay? I get they wanted a cool visual. I get it. But it's so fucking stupid that I can't accept the visual. I can't say, oh, that looks cool, because it's stupid. It's pathetically stupid. I can't accept it. No. There are times when you make a really good monster, like the Weeping Angels, and there are times when you should leave them. Sometimes additions are fine, but most of the time it's just bad. When you've created a good monster, that's already good. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Why are you trying to add more and more and more to their lore? It's so annoying. This one batch of angels having a human farm in this building in New York, I can get on board with that. As I say, that's a decent premise, but I don't like the rest of it. It's nonsensical and it's stupid and I hate it. I have more notes on this, but it's mostly just a hate train and I don't want to be that kind of person. So I think I've said enough of my disdain for this particular episode. I'll just end it with, yes, it's very emotional with the Amy and Rory stuff, but when they've beaten the angels and they've had that beautiful emotional moment between them where they choose to die together rather than live without each other, and then they wake up in the graveyard, everything's sorted, and then all of that is made entirely pointless by Rory staring at a gravestone and seeing his name, and then an angel takes him, then Amy lets herself be taken, and the fact that there are so many ways the Doctor could have gone back and saved them and left them, obviously, put them back in their own time and just left them. There are so many ways he could have done that it's astounding anyone can defend this. It's not even a plot hole at this point, it's just a fucking crater of what? No. I said I wasn't going to go on again and now I did. I can't even be happy with the songs in the episode because I just don't like the episode. I can't stand it. I mean, seriously, with New York, the Doctor and Martha landed perfectly fine in Series 3, right outside the Statue of Liberty. Right at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty. A fucking angel, apparently. They landed there just fine. And then in the chase in Season 2 of Classic Who, they land in New York at the top of the Empire State Building. Absolutely fine. When do these time distortions start exactly? Because the mind is boggled by the mental gymnastics it takes to try and accept this storyline. Okay, all that being said, I'm so sorry if you like this episode, I am, but this is my opinion. Please tell me in the comments below why you love this episode without using the words fixed point. I'm not asking you to fill in a plot hole here, I'm just asking you why you like the episode as a genuine thing. It's just a conversation starter, I'm not asking you to argue against my points. I'm just saying, I've said why I don't like it, why do you like it? Let's have a chat. And if you do like this episode, I highly suggest you look away just for 10 seconds because I'm going to put it in Scarra Sewers. All of the emotion for me is ruined by the ending. It would have been a brilliant episode, and I would have been able to look past the Statue of Liberty thing, possibly. Probably not. I probably wouldn't have been able to look past that one, let's be honest. But I would have been able to ignore it if the ending had been better. But it wasn't. It didn't need to happen. Nothing about that ending needed to happen. I can't deal with it. And the MVP for the episode is P.I. Sam Garner. I actually forgot to mention I quite liked the start of the episode with the film noir vibes. Just kind of wish that had have carried on throughout the episode, but it's fine. Before I carry on with the next episode, I do just want to say that the first 5 episodes of this series had different title sequences. And by different, I mean the exact same title sequence, but with a different filter put on top. And then the logo had differences on it. And part of me really likes that because I quite like the different style of the same thing that we're given for those episodes. But I also hate it because I don't like the title sequence for this series at all. We're going to get a new one, I think, in the next episode, but I hate that as well. I don't like the Series 7 title sequence at all, but I don't like the new logo of the 7A title sequences. It's like they want their cake and to eat it too, because they still do the little logo of the DW logo. They have that come up just so the TARDIS can spin out of it, but it's not in the middle of the logo anymore, so it's pointlessly put there because you've already had Doctor Who come up, and then you put the logo up after that just for the TARDIS to spin out. It just seems unnecessary. And of course, the incredibly cheesy ending to the title sequence where the TARDIS doors open up. I don't like that at all. They open up outwards, I think, actually, in the little thing, which looks horrendous. Inwards would have just been better for revealing the episode inside rather than outwards, because obviously it's not coming out at you, so it just looks weird. And obviously the Doctor does open TARDIS doors inwards, so it works on 2 levels going in. But yeah, I just think that that was odd and cheesy, and I didn't like that at all. Nothing about the Series 7 title sequences pleases me overall. Next up is the Snowmen. So on to our first Christmas special of the series, and this one got a 4. As an episode of Doctor Who, I don't think it's the best, but as a Christmas episode, I think it's enjoyable enough. And finally, we meet the best Clara. Let's not get confused here. Victorian Clara is the best Clara. Why she was not the main Clara, I will never understand. Apparently that was the original intention, but they seem to think that even though we've had 26 classic seasons with companions who I'm pretty sure most of, if not half of, were either aliens or people from other time zones, and people just got on board with that without an issue, and that was in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I'm pretty sure people in the noughties and the 2010s could have dealt with that, especially since we've had contemporary Earth companions from 2005. I feel like we would have been absolutely fine with having a non-contemporary Earth companion. People liked Astrid in The Voyage of the Damned. She wasn't from Earth. I like Rosita from The Next Doctor. I think she would have been a great companion for the 10th Doctor during his specials era. I wanted her as companion. She was Victorian as well. I just think that there should be more alternate companions, less contemporary Earth ones, please and thank you. Paternoster Gang are back. Love to see it. Every episode of the Paternoster Gang is dear to my heart just because we get the Paternoster Gang. Strax especially is fucking hilarious. I love him. And the way the 11th Doctor treats him in this episode is so harsh but so funny. Seriously, can we have an audio series that's just 11 with Strax as his companion? Please, anyone from Big Finish listening to this, give me 11 and Strax. An audio series with them, please. Thank you. Speaking of audio, there's a scene where the Doctor finally agrees to investigate and he goes into Simeon's lair as Sherlock Holmes. And the music that Murray Gold has under that particular scene sounds very, very much like Sherlock, the BBC Sherlock, which is also a Stephen Moffat production. And whilst I would quite like that and think it's quite fun, Stephen Moffat was Sherlockifying the Doctor since Series 5, and I don't like that. I've never liked the Sherlockification of the Doctor. They are 2 very different characters. I know that they're comparable, but they're not the same person, and they just seem to be constantly mushed together, to the point now where even that new Young Sherlock show has Sherlock and Moriarty being besties from a young age at school together, which makes no sense. I'm pretty sure Moriarty was in like 2 Sherlock Holmes books, just 2. And yes, he's a big bad villain and I love him in Sherlock the series and I would have wanted more of him. But I don't like retroactively changing a character's backstory into having the villain and the hero being besties from a young age. The Doctor and the Master had that, and that's what differed them from Sherlock and Moriarty. Now Sherlock and the Doctor are just the same person apparently, and I hate it. Also, I think this episode is where the 11th Doctor suddenly changes from being the most asexual Doctor to being the most sexually charged Doctor. There's a weird pipeline where 11 goes from being completely ace to being the most horny Doctor in existence, and it's this episode. This is where the change happens, I'm pretty sure, because he was always awkward about everything to do with everything, and now he's suddenly the most sexually charged Doctor there is, and it gets worse. It gets worse in this series. This particular season, he gets so much worse and I can't stand it. But I think it's Clara. He and Clara are really flirty together and I don't like that. And maybe this is why I don't like that. Because he's supposed to be asexual. At least 11. I count the Doctor entirely as asexual anyway. Whatever other people say, that's fine. It's a fictional character, you can say what you want. But I count him as ace anyway. But in this series, he's just too much. I don't mind when he flirts with River because she's his wife and they've got the massive history together. But him flirting with Clara in this episode and then continuing to flirt with Clara throughout series 7 and then talking about her being in too tight a skirt and then having the Jenny moments, we'll get there, we'll come to that. It's just too much. He's just too sexually charged and too horny and it's weird. He wasn't like that. He's gone from one end of the spectrum to the complete opposite end. It doesn't work. It's weird. Anyway, moving along. As a historical fiction fan, I was rooting for Victorian Clara and Latimer to get together because I'm a complete sap for historical fiction. And that's just how it usually works in that. But also, can we just talk about the outfits in this? Because Clara wears some gorgeous dresses. Like the barmaid outfit and the governess outfit, both of them are absolutely stunning. And I love it. All the costumes in Doctor Who, when they do something set in a historical period, they know how to do historical costuming in BBC productions. And Doctor Who is no exception. Last thing to say about it is I like the reveal of the new TARDIS interior near the end, even though it doesn't look finished. And it won't look finished until Series 8 comes along. Best TARDIS interior. All that being said, I'm going to put the snowmen into fantastic. I'm going to be generous with this one and the last one I put in this category just because I don't think it's going to go up from here. And the MVP for the episode is Simeon's servant. Apparently the man doesn't have a name, but he was just so funny when the Doctor was trying to do his Sherlock thing and then Simeon kept saying, no, I don't have a wife, I don't have a tree, no. And then the Doctor was like, but do you have a goldfish named Colin, to the servant? And he was like, no. Like he proper thought about it, bless him. Bless him. Next up is the Bells of St. John. So this episode got a 3. It's not necessarily a bad episode, but it's definitely nothing special. It's just sort of okay. The spoonheads are a bit odd, especially the way that when their job's done, they still just sort of stand over the bodies, which makes no sense to the evil guy's plans. We're just going to assume that it's just Clara they continue to stand over, just for plot reasons. The Doctor's obsession with Clara makes complete sense, which is fine. I think it would be better if when he realised the Victorian Clara in the last episode was the same as Oswin Oswald, had he have flashed back to suddenly seeing the different Claras in the whole of the rest of 7A, it would have been even better. Just saying. If there was a Clara splinter in the background of every episode of 7A, it would have been better. I'm just saying, it would have been nice, okay? And he could have flashed back to all of those, and then people would have gone back and rewatched and be like, oh my god, there she is. So it just would have been fun, okay? But yeah, his obsession with finding her and solving the mystery, I don't mind that, to be honest. I know a lot of people didn't like the Impossible Girl mystery box of the series, but I didn't mind it. My biggest issue with it is that once it's solved, it's never brought up again and Clara changes completely. Clara's character is the worst with regards to development because there isn't development, there's just change. Complete and sudden change. She's not the same character in Series 7 as she is in Series 8, and she's not the same character in Series 8 as she is in Series 9. And between 7 and 8, it makes a bit more sense because she has splintered herself off and whatnot. But she shouldn't remember all those different lives because they were completely new people. River Song literally said, you will die, those will just be echoes of you. They were born, they aged, they died, etc. It has no bearing on her real self. She won't remember any of those lives. So why does she change? I've just talked myself out of the fact that it made sense because it doesn't make sense. Only other thing is the Great Intelligence. I like how in the last episode it was like the first time the Great Intelligence actually met the Doctor and the Doctor didn't quite remember him because it was a second Doctor era episode, so fair. But he also gave him the London Underground idea, which is funny. But in this episode, it kind of is made clear to me that the Great Intelligence has a thing for grooming children. I don't remember in the second Doctor episodes whether the characters who work for the Great Intelligence were taken by him as children or not. But in this one, Miss Kislet was clearly 6 or something from the ending. Very, very young when she was taken by the Great Intelligence and groomed. And then obviously in the last episode, Simeon was groomed at young age. The Great Intelligence is a groomer in the word. I don't like it. Anyway, I'm going to put this one into Wibbly Wobbly. As I say, it's not a bad episode, it's just okay. But as a mid-season premiere, it's a bit naff, isn't it? And the MVP for the episode is The Waitress. Again, a character who doesn't have a name, but she puts up with a lot of weirdness from the Doctor in this episode that, without the context that we have as an audience, comes across as creepy, okay? She puts up with a lot of creepy activity from this man, so good on her. I remember what it's like to work in hospitality. The waitress gets my vote as MVP because she didn't punch the man in the face. Next up is the Rings of Akaten. I'm really sorry guys, but this one also got a 2 from me. Same with The Angels Take Manhattan. The best bits of this episode, the emotional moments and whatnot, completely ruined. I'll get to that though. First of all, I want to say what I liked about the episode, which was how Clara was with Mary. I think Clara was really sweet with Mary, and that does work well with the fact that Clara is a nanny. She clearly is just good with children anyway. I think it's nice to have those sort of quieter, sweeter moments between characters, especially when it's a new companion or a new doctor as well at any point, when they are quieter moments with characters, because they're important. People forget that you need those character moments, especially in the climate of TV as it stands at the moment, where everything has to be hard action all the time, and if there's an episode that's just character driven, like there always used to be, that's what filler episodes were. They were character driven episodes, but you don't have those anymore because studios won't greenlight more than 6 episodes for series now. But with Doctor Who in this era, they always do have small quiet character moments between certain characters, and I do like that. I liked how Clara was with Mary. Speaking of Clara though, it is really fucking creepy how the Doctor watched her entire life from pre-conception through to at least when her mum died. I get he wants to solve the mystery, but come on Doc, that's creepy. You're stalking her. That is literally just stalking. I don't like it. Especially since she was a child. He was stalking a child. I don't care what the reason is, that's creepy. Okay, so down to the brass tacks of it, down to why I gave it a 2. The Doctor's speech. Everyone knows that the Rings of Akaten speech by the Doctor is one of the most beautiful and painful speeches in Doctor Who. Not the most, one of. I'm not ranking speeches yet. It is a beautiful and painful speech to watch, and I think Matt Smith plays it so well. But it's completely entirely ruined by the fact that the planet god thing doesn't think that the Doctor's like 1200-year-old life is enough of a story for it, whereas usually a fucking song does the trick. But the Doctor apparently doesn't have enough life in him to sustain this sun god. But Clara pulls out a leaf, and that saves the day. A leaf with a potential life that was lost is more powerful than the Doctor. But the thing is, Clara's mum died naturally. It wasn't with anything else where a villain comes along and kills her mum before her time. Clara's mum just died in a completely natural, normal way. So why is that a potential life, all the missing days and whatnot, different to the Doctor's life and all the people he's known and loved and lost and all their potential days? And considering he's 1200, that's considerably more potential days than the fucking leaf would have for Clara's mum. I mean, think about it. The Doctor's lost entire planets. Not just Gallifrey, all these other planets. He's lost so much and so many. How are those not worth more than the fucking leaf? Honestly, I hate the leaf moment. It ruins the whole episode for me. Especially the fact that Clara calls it the most important leaf in human history. Because it's not, okay? It's not the most important leaf in human history. It's the most important leaf in her history. Her personal history. Not human history, just hers. That leaf means fuck all to any other human. I fucking said it, okay? I'm sick of the leaf moment and it ruins the whole episode for me. And because of that, I don't know what to do with this episode. I don't think it's bad enough to put it into Skaro sewers just because of the fucking leaf. I feel like I've sworn the most in this video than I have anywhere else. I don't think it's bad enough to go into Skaro sewers. Ugh. Okay, I'm just going to put it into Wibbly Wobbly and be done with it. I don't want to talk about this episode anymore. Except to say that the MVP is Mary Gallel. Next up is Cold War. I'm not beating the I hate Ice Warrior allegations, am I? Because this episode got a 2. I just found it a bit dull, to be honest. There have been Ice Warrior episodes in the past, maybe just one, but still, there has been precedent for me actually liking an Ice Warrior episode. But generally, I'm not a fan of Ice Warriors or the episodes they're in. Actually, I think it's 2. I think it's 2 episodes that I liked. Overall, this is quite a tense and claustrophobic episode, which does make it hard to watch for someone like me, because if I was travelling with the Doctor, there would be 2 conditions. 2 places I would never ever step foot. One is deep space. I wouldn't be going to a space station. If it's a planet, that's fine, but I'm not going to a space station or a planet that requires an oxygen suit or anything like that. No, not doing it. And deep sea, okay? Deep space, deep ocean, 2 places I never want to go. I don't want to do anything where I do not have access to air. So yeah, this episode is quite tense and claustrophobic, but other than that, as I say, it's just a bit dull. Also, the most egregious thing about it is the Ice Warrior itself, because whilst it is mostly practical, we then get the CGI monstrosity again, and I can't stand that. I feel like this is the first Ice Warrior episode in New Who, so it's not quite so bad as if we had had a practical one in the last season before this. But when you see it originally in this episode, it's very much, you can see that it's practical. So when they then reveal the Ice Warrior's face and it's all completely CGI and floppy, it's just weird. I don't like that. I don't like that, no. Why would you do CGI? We see with the Silurians how good they can make that sort of makeup, so why not just do it there? Prosthetics and practical effects are gold dust in Doctor Who. They're brilliant. That's Doctor Who's bread and butter. They're brilliant with that sort of stuff, so why not just do practical? I'm so sick of using CGI when it's not necessary. We'll get to the later seasons of Doctor Who. To be honest, I don't mind seeing glimpses of the Ice Warrior outside of the armour because the long creepy claws were creepy. Although I don't understand how they fit into the pincer things that the Ice Warrior has on the end of his arms. That doesn't make any sense. That wasn't really thought through very well. Doesn't make any sense at all. But I don't mind seeing glimpses of the Ice Warrior. But then the full face reveal was fucking weird. It was bad. Poorly done. Something else about this is that the Doctor says that some points are fixed, some points are in flux. This is something I can use as an example for why I hate the whole fixed points, flux points in Doctor Who. Because this episode, as I say, the Doctor talks about fixed and flux points, and he says that this is a point in flux. So the Ice Warrior could blow up the world and be done with it. However, Waters of Mars. I'm going to be using that one a lot as my example because it's always in the future from these episodes. Waters of Mars is a fixed point. The whole episode was built around the idea that the Doctor cannot change fixed points. And when he does, bad things happen. We've also got the Wedding River song where time went completely awry because she wouldn't kill the Doctor like she was supposed to. I've already said my thoughts on that and how she wasn't actually necessary to that plot at all. The point is, they've shown that there are consequences to changing fixed points or to trying to change them. So what the fuck is this? If the Ice Warrior did blow up the world in this flux point, then Waters of Mars could never happen. Ever. The Waters of Mars could never happen, but that's a fixed point. Doesn't make any sense. I don't care there's a fixed point for human history specifically. It's a fucking fixed point. It has to happen. So how does that happen? How? Huh? This is my issue. You can't use the idea that, oh, it's only a fixed point for human history as an excuse when the Doctor says that some points are flux and some are fixed. And you've got that Silurian episode in series 5 where the Doctor says, oh, humans, Silurians, this is a flux point. You could change history here. But that's human history, and that would have changed Waters of Mars as well. So I don't like it. This is a perfect example of why I don't like the whole fixed and flux points in Doctor Who. One thing I do like about the episode is Clara stands out as a companion in this one because the typical companion model for a Doctor Who companion is that he says, stay here, and then they go, nope, I'm following you. But in this one, the Doctor says, stay here. And she's like, yeah, okay. And he's like, no, really, stay here. She's like, won't be a problem. I'm staying here. Like, he thinks that she's about to argue with him. And he's like, no, just stay here. She's like, yeah, I am. I'm staying right here. She has no intention of following him at all. And then in Hyde, later on, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, that same sort of thing happens again. But the opposite, like he says, all right, come on then. And she's like, what? And he's just like, well, we're going to go see a ghost. She's like, I'd really rather not. I'd rather stay here. It makes Clara stand out more as a companion because it's so different to every other companion that we've seen, especially in the New Who era, because they all just follow the Doctor or go off on their own and do their own thing, whereas Clara's like, no, okay, I'm just going to stay here because that's what the Doctor said and this is a scary situation, I don't know what to do. Especially since she has just seen dead people, she has just had to deal with the Ice Warrior alone as well to find out he wasn't even in the armour. So I think it makes sense for the character, and I like the fact that it makes her stand out a bit more, other than her just being the impossible girl. Anyway, overall, I don't like the episode, and I'm gonna be nice about it because I often forget that it exists. So instead of putting it in Skaro Sewers, because I don't think it's terrible, I just don't like it. So instead of putting it there, I'm gonna put it instead into Doctor Who. And the MVP for the episode is Professor Krasensko. The next episode is Hyde. This episode got a 4, and I've already said one thing I like about the episode because it linked into the last episode. So what I like about the episode as well is that I like the 70s haunted house vibes of the episode. I quite like that. I don't think it was as well done as other haunted house episodes have been, or how this could have been, but I do like the vibes of it. I think it was done fairly well. Only thing I'll say though is that the Sarah Jane Adventures had 2 haunted house episodes within its run, and they were both done better than this one was. They both had sci-fi twists and reasons for the haunting, and they both worked really well. This one, I think, pales in comparison to that, but I do like the fact that it's the 70s haunted house vibes instead. It just makes it a bit more spooky. I don't like the companion assistant conversation. It's just a random little thing. When the Doctor and Clara introduce themselves to the other characters there, they talk about whether it's companion or assistant and stuff like that, and companion is also old-fashioned. Assistant, I think, is actually on the same level as companion, because a companion was literally a paid job from the Victorian era. It's a paid job for a young woman for a long time in history, before the Victorian era, but that's where I know it best from. It was literally a job for a woman. What's the difference between that and assistant, really? I love the conversation between the Doctor and Clara when they've just watched the entire life of Earth from birth to death, and she's saying about how everyone must just be a ghost to him. It's quite an interesting conversation. And then when she says, but what are we then? If not that, what are we to you? That's when it gets ruined, because the Doctor, instead of saying something genuine, he just says, you are the only mystery worth solving. To Clara specifically. So fuck all the rest of humanity, they are ghosts to him. Clara specifically is a mystery he wants to solve. I really feel like Moffat just loves Clara to no end before he even really created her. It's too much. I like the twist at the end that the crooked man just wanted to get back to his crooked girl, but I do feel like the writer should have just stuck with one ghost story. Either have the woman running through the alternate dimension, or have the crooked man haunting this house. I probably would prefer the crooked man haunting the house one, to be honest, because that would actually be a haunted house one, whereas the woman running in an alternate dimension requires the specific medium with the instruments and stuff like that, whereas the crooked man in the haunted house would have been a really fun one with non-scientific people to be there, but whatever. But I feel like they should have just picked one of those storylines and run with that. I don't think we needed both. Having said that, I think I'm gonna put this into upgrade in progress. Yeah, if they'd have chosen just one ghost story and run with that and built that one up better, I think that it would probably been fantastic, because I do love a ghost story. But yeah, as it is, it's an upgrade in progress. And the MVP of the episode is Emma Grayling. Next up is Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS. So this one got a 3, and it's not my favourite. I like the concept of it, that we're seeing more of the TARDIS, but I feel like most of it was just hallways. I think it would have been better done in a different way. What I think I would have preferred is if the TARDIS had have somehow been breached by a bad force, and because of that the TARDIS went into lockdown mode or something and turned itself into a maze of sorts, so that every time the Doctor and Clara walked through a door they were in the wrong room, so that basically the bad guy couldn't get to the console room and couldn't get to the Doctor and Clara, so the TARDIS was actively trying to keep them all apart from each other and keep the Doctor and Clara safe and try and trap this guy. That I think would have been better, because then you would see the actual rooms of the TARDIS. We only really saw a couple of rooms. We didn't see much in the way of the TARDIS. Most of it, as I say, was just hallways again, which is the same as in The Doctor's Wife. We just saw hallways. Honestly, they made this episode apparently because they were annoyed that in the classic series, when they were travelling inside the TARDIS, you didn't see much. I feel like you saw more there than you see here. The time leaks in the TARDIS, I think, are an interesting concept as well. I do think that's really interesting. However, again, I think that could have been done better, because I feel like what they should have done was have all of time in the TARDIS, not just the Doctor and Clara, but all of time. Have a snippet of Susan, Ian and Barbara with the Doctor. Have a snippet of Jamie. Have some of Six and Mel, you know, bit of Nissa and Tegan. There's so much that they could have done, and they just didn't. They just kept it as the Doctor and Clara. I think having just these little snippets everywhere, they could just have a body double to be the shadow in the background of the Sixth Doctor and Mel, and have a snippet of their conversation from a classic era episode. I don't understand why it's just the Doctor and Clara. It just seems a bit pointless to have the time leaks if it's just for that. And then obviously the time zombies don't make any sense either. Why are they there? Why do the time leaks not affect anything apart from the time zombies? And why are they going after their former selves? Why are they still alive? It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. I don't like the threat of the episode. So now we're going to come to the real reason I absolutely despise the episode. The book. The bloody book. Okay. First up, let's just be clear here. I don't care if Clara doesn't remember the events of this episode. The Doctor's name, his real name, should not be in that fucking book, okay? He may not have called himself the Doctor during the Time War, but the Time Lords still know him and knew him before as the Doctor. And he didn't go back to using his original name. He didn't really call himself anything. The Warrior is the closest thing I've seen, but no one called him that either. People still called him Doctor, really. And we've seen scenes where the Doctor isn't even there and the Time Lords still call him Doctor, before, during and after the Time War. So they clearly respect that chosen name and wouldn't use any other name. So no one would have written his original name in the book. And second, who fucking wrote the book? One thing, the book is in English, okay? We know the TARDIS does not translate written Gallifreyan. We know that. So the book was actually written in English. Why would anyone choose to write in English about the Time War for a book on the history of the Time War? And why does the book even exist? Because at this point, the Doctor doesn't even know that he didn't actually destroy Gallifrey. He doesn't know that, which means that that book could only exist if he himself wrote it. But he wouldn't write that book. That is a fucking hefty book. There is no way that the Doctor would have written that much about the Time War or anything about the Time War. He doesn't want to remember the Time War. He wouldn't write that. He wouldn't write that book. No way. And no other Time Lord could have written it, because how would the Doctor have it in his TARDIS? The History of the Time War would make a really great book, but no one within the Doctor's vicinity would write that book. And no one outside of the Time Lords would know his name. Therefore, the only two people who could have written that book are the Doctor himself or any other Time Lord on Gallifrey who happens to know his original name. But neither of them did that. So why is the book there? The book ruins the entire episode for me, more so than anything else, because it's such a pointless addition. I hate it. I bloody hate it. Also with this episode, just as an aside, there is a sexist joke in this episode where the Doctor makes an inference that Clara can't drive the TARDIS because she's a woman and not because she has never driven a TARDIS before. That's coming from a man who didn't even pass his flying test, so. And I don't like that. I don't like sexist jokes, especially when they come from the fucking Doctor, who has met some of the strongest women in the Whoniverse and has worked alongside them. Honestly, if River heard him make that joke, I think she would slap him so hard he'd regenerate 3 times. And again, Time Lords are a gender-bending species. Why would he even be sexist? Why would he make that joke? It doesn't... Sexist jokes by Time Lords in Doctor Who don't work for me at all. Sexist jokes in general don't work for me, but especially when they're said by a Time Lord, a gender-bending species. I'm going to be generous and put this one into Wibbly Wobbly. There is honestly so much about this whole series that I don't like. Series 7 has always been my least liked series of any Doctor Who season, but yeah, I'm really trying hard to be nice about these episodes and not just put them all in Scarrow sewers, because they're not bad, they just have a lot of bad bits in them. So, yeah. Speaking of bad, we don't have an MVP for this episode, but we do have 2 no VPs, and that is Bram and Gregor Van Balen. Can we just talk about how pure evil the Van Balen brothers are? Who the fuck makes their younger brother believe he is a fucking android so that he can be a slave to them? Who gaslights someone to that extent? What is that? That is pure fucking evil, and all because they're a bit jelly that their dad liked him better. And I know that Bram's personality changes a bit at the end of the episode, but I'm not canonising that in my head, no, because none of the episode actually happened. Everything was reversed. So he didn't go on the adventure at all, so his personality shouldn't change. He's still a dick. Bram and Gregor are dicks. Next up is the Crimson Horror. Now this is the 100th episode of the new series and I unapologetically love it. I gave it a 4. I think it's a brilliant episode of the show. It's got fabulous characters, a fantastic and fun villain, and of course the Paternoster Gang are there. It's fun. It's a great episode. And it has a great mystery as well. I like the mystery. Only thing is, it's written almost as if it's a backdoor pilot for the Paternoster Gang to have their own show, which they should have. They should have had their own show. But I kind of like the fact that we follow the Paternoster Gang first before we see the Doctor and Clara. I think that's a really nice, interesting way of writing the episode. Diana Rigg playing Mrs. Gillyflower, the villain. Absolutely fantastic. She clearly had a ball with this part. She seems like she's having such fun playing it. I love it. I love her. This is just fantastic. She's just so delightfully evil. And the bit when the Doctor's saying, in the wrong hands, this could do X, Y, Z, and she's like, do you know what these are? The wrong hands. Oh, I love her. I love her. Obviously the costumes. The costumes are glorious. I love me some historical costumes. I've already said it in this series. But especially when you see historical costuming in Doctor Who, generally you can see they're wearing the correct underwear underneath because of just how it is all structured. But in this, you can actually see they're wearing the correct underwear to the letter. Not only are they wearing corsets, but they're wearing shifts underneath. I love it. That scene where all the people get dipped into the gloop. I love that scene purely because it shows exactly what historical undergarments should be looking like. I love it. Shifts underneath your corset. I love it. Brilliant. The only issue obviously is Jenny when she does the scene where she drops all of her clothes and she's wearing the leather catsuit. That doesn't work at all for me. And leather would not be a good material to be wearing for that fight scene anyway. I don't understand what the point was of that. And obviously that brings me to one of the worst Doctor moments, one of the two worst Doctor moments, both of which are in this episode. When Jenny does drop her clothes, Dr. Sonic Screwdriver goes, and he goes, when did he go from being ace to being this? I hate it. Absolutely fucking hate it. Not to mention the kiss. We're gonna fucking mention it, obviously. This is the 12th time the Doctor has kissed any of his companions. I have been keeping count. But why was this kiss written? This is not only without consent, but it's also a kiss forced on a married woman who is also a lesbian. There is no interest between her and the Doctor. Why does he kiss her? It doesn't make sense in context of the scene or in the context of the characters. I hate it. Honestly, this episode could easily have had a 5, but for all of the weird Doctor stuff. I can't look past that, okay? Especially the non-consensual kiss. Jenny was right to slap him. He deserved it. Anyway, I'm going to tier this one now, otherwise I'll go on about that. So I'm going to put this into fantastic. I unapologetically love the episode. Except for the ending with Angie and Artie. That sucks. They suck. I hate it. You can guess where the next episode's going to go. The MVP for this episode is Ada Gleeflower. I just think she's a really tragic character and I feel so bad for her. But I love the scene where, again, it's a soft, quiet scene. The Doctor finds her crying in the corner and he takes a moment to go and talk to her. It's just such a sweet scene and Ada deserves MVP, to be honest. Next up is Nightmare in Silver. So this episode got a 1. I feel like it might be the first 1 of NewWho. I could be wrong, but I feel like it could be the first 1 of NewWho. So there are a few things that let this episode down for me. 1, the kids. Need I say more? 2, the constantly upgrading Cybermen. What is that about? Doesn't even make sense. I don't like it. I don't agree with those little tiny little bot things, the little bug bots, changing them up all the time. It doesn't make sense. The water thing, for instance. You can't upgrade a Cyberman instantly to be okay in water when it wasn't before. 3, the Speedster Cybermen. Makes no sense and I don't like it, and it's an unnecessary addition to the Cybermen. Yes, I have 2 points on the Cybermen. 4, the Emperor thing. No one gets to be an emperor of an entire universe without being a truly terrible person first. Even if he's born into it, your family clearly sucks, alright? And this guy didn't want to be emperor. He made it very clear throughout the episode that he ran away from his responsibilities and he didn't want to be the emperor. Fucking abdicate, mate! Why are you staying as emperor and just leaving your responsibilities when you could just abdicate? Create a democracy. Let someone else take over who wants to be in charge and will lead people into good stuff or whatever, I don't care. Empires are bad regardless. But seriously, am I supposed to feel bad for this prick? I don't care that he doesn't want to be an emperor. Oh, poor sad emperor man who has everything at his fingertips he could ever want. You don't want to be an emperor? What an absolute crying fucking shame. Abdicate. Don't run away from your responsibilities, you prick. Other than that, the episode's alright, I guess. But the Doctor is way too irresponsible in the episode. He should have dropped off Angie and Artie and gone back to the theme park planet to solve the mystery, not kept them there while he solved it. He put them all in danger, knowingly. It was bad. Also, the Cyber Doctor is way too emotional and has way too much of a personality. The writer of this episode clearly does not understand the Cybermen, what their purpose is, why they were created, or how they work. He just doesn't understand anything about that, clearly. Even down to the fact that he gave himself a name of Mr. Clever. The Cybermen don't have names. They have designations. They could be a Cyberman or a Cyber Leader or a Cyber Controller. I think that's it. But they don't have names. The Cyber Doctor calling himself Mr. Clever. Don't get me wrong, Matt Smith played it really well, okay? Matt Smith did wonderful in this episode, playing the 2 parts simultaneously. He was brilliant. But he shouldn't have had to do it. It shouldn't have been written. It was stupid. It doesn't work. And then obviously at the end we have the line about Clara being a mystery trapped in an enigma, wrapped in a skirt that's just a little bit too tight. Why is the Doctor saying this shit? I don't like it. What is that? It's terrible. Anyway, this episode is going to go into Skaro Sewers, obviously. And there is no MVP because there's literally no one in the episode I care about. Actually, fuck that. There is a no VP. The no VP is Porridge because he ran away from his responsibilities instead of fucking abdicating. Next up is the name of the Doctor. So this episode got a 4 and I do think it's one of the weaker finales. I will be honest, I think that this is one of the weaker ones and I constantly forget it's a thing. My notes aren't actually really about the episode, to be honest. I clearly forgot about the episode while I was watching it as well. The whole Mystery Girl thing with Clara, I never really minded that. I liked the conclusion to that, how she jumped into the Doctor's timeline to save him, because every companion saves the Doctor. They don't need to jump into his timeline to do it, but every companion does it in some form, so I don't really see any difference here. The only thing is that it makes her way too critical to his personal life and history, which I don't like, but I could get on board with in this particular episode. It's just in future where it becomes annoying with that, because it does get worse. It does get worse, and the Doctor's obsession with her becomes more evident with the next 2 seasons, and I hate that as well. Also, the whole Impossible Girl thing is never mentioned again. Yes, in Deep Breath it's used in an advert in the newspaper, but that is it. The whole actual story of Clara going through the Doctor's timeline is never mentioned again. Moffat comes in with another rhyme in this episode because he fucking loves his nursery rhymes. He made up a new one for this one. The Smith era is covered in rhyming stuff. Just a lot of rhymes, a lot of them to do with the Doctor's demise or something along those lines. But yeah, he just loves his nursery rhymes. Okay, the ending. Look, as epic as a conclusion as it was to have this new Doctor that no one knew about being introduced, why not just use Doctor 8? Because the whole reason they didn't use him in the first place is because Moffat was like, yeah, but no one knows who that is. But you've just introduced a new Doctor. So what's the difference? If they had just used Paul McGann and had him as the War Doctor, as the 8th Doctor War Doctor, not only would they not have screwed up the numbering, and something that I'm going to discuss later on in this series will make more sense, but it would have worked both ways. Classic fans would have had their 8th Doctor fix. New Who fans would have a new Doctor that they can look at. It doesn't matter if he's known or not known. It really doesn't, because you've just brought in a brand new Doctor anyway. Look, I don't mind John Hurt's War Doctor, I think he does a good job, but I would trade him in an instant to get Paul McGann in the role. I think it works better having the 8th Doctor being the Doctor of War, having him being this fresh-faced, lovely, happy-go-lucky chap in the movie, and then his ending being the War Doctor. I think that would have worked really well as a nice arc for his character before the 9th Doctor comes along as the post-War Doctor. Also, where was the fucking exit in the Doctor's timeline? Because the Doctor jumped in, we saw his timeline behind him fizzling and then disappear. Where was the exit? Because they just sort of ended the episode meeting the War Doctor, and the next episode just exists. They're all just out of the timeline doing normal shit. So where does it... I don't understand that. Anyway, this episode... I'm going to put it into Doctor Who. The bits I cared about weren't even episode moments. I think I cut out of my notes all of the actual specific moments, because I know I had something in here about Jenny's death being really tragic. The way she kept apologising when she was dying, that was really horrible to watch. But yeah, the episode itself, if I think about Doctor Who finales, this isn't one I think of, so I'm going to put it into Doctor Who. And the MVP for the episode is River Song. Next up is The Night of the Doctor. Yes, I'm including a mini-sode in this, just this one time. There is no rating for it because it's a mini-sode. I didn't feel right rating it because that rating would have impacted the season score. But I just wanted to include it because it's the 8th Doctor and he deserves more love, so here we are. First things to say, I love the little title sequence. I love the little title sequence of this one. I think it's really fun that they gave this mini-sode an actual title sequence and that it's so similar to the movie title sequence. I like that. I love the character of Cass in the episode being so disgusted when she finds out that the Doctor's a Time Lord and she chooses to die rather than go with him and save herself because she has that much hatred for Time Lords during the Time War. Because that really shows the impact of the Time War on other species. It's like the Gelth in The Unquiet Dead, where they were so affected by the Time War that they lost corporal form. This is Cass showing how much people hate the Time Lords after what they've done with the Time War. Yes, they hate the Daleks too, but she's saying, well, who can tell the difference between you anymore? Clearly the Time Lords got up to some showy shit. Last thing I want to say about this is I absolutely love when the 8th Doctor drinks the potion and regenerates. He name drops all of his 8th Doctor companions from Expanded Universe, effectively canonising Big Finish. Love that. But he name drops Tamsin, Lucy, Molly, Charlie, but effectively Expanded Media has been canonised in the Whoniverse now, and I appreciate that. I mean, personally, I always count Expanded Media as canon until it can't be anyway. So, for me, it didn't change much. I just appreciate it, you know? Anywho, since this one has absolutely no effect on the rest of the season whatsoever, and I love the episode and the 8th Doctor, I'm going to put this straight into NewWho. I love it. I love a mini-sode. And obviously there's no MVP because I didn't feel like it was fair to give a mini-sode an MVP. Next up is The Day of the Doctor. Congrats on making 50 years, Doctor Who! So finally we are at the 50th anniversary special of Doctor Who, hence me getting my fake whiskey out. I will have a real glass of scotch later on to celebrate, but for now it's fake because Still the morning. But congrats on 50 years, Doctor Who. Here's to 60. Maybe I'll have to get a brandy or a port or something for that one. So The Day of the Doctor got a 5, obviously. I love this episode and I love it so much I've got 2 pages of notes on it. So let's see how we go with getting through these. I love the opening, the fact that we have the 60s theme tune followed by the black and white opening with the policeman walking past. We see the Totters Lane sign there. I love all of that. And then the Coal Hill School having Ian Chesterton on the Board of Governors. I love all of that. It's such a great callback to the very first episode of the show. And it does slightly make up for the fact that there is no actual classic Who in this 50th anniversary celebration. And yes, there is a classic Doctor in the form of Tom Baker, but he's not even a classic Doctor because he's the curator, which means he's technically a NewWho Doctor because he's a new incarnation from way down the line. So there's no classic Doctor in this at all. Again, why do they not just use Paul McGann? Could you imagine Paul McGann in this episode? My God, that would have been brilliant. And people may have been clamouring for an 8th Doctor miniseries by that point as well. Could you imagine us getting an actual series of Paul McGann as the Doctor during the Time War on screen? Would have been fantastic. Okay, so my main problem with the start is when the fuck did Clara go to university and get a teaching degree? So she is an English teacher in a state school in England. The law in the UK for state schools is that if you want to be a teacher in a secondary school, like Clara is, you have to have a degree in the subject you're teaching and you have to have the teaching qualification as well. Clara could not have possibly got that. Not in a million years could she have got that because she's been travelling with the Doctor this whole time. She clearly didn't have a degree in anything before she started her travels with the Doctor because she was going to go travelling anyway. And she was a nanny. She was acting as a nanny and then she just stayed. And then she was going to go travelling with the Doctor. Yes, technically she had time to do it, but not everyone went to university, so she didn't need to do it. And I don't really believe that she did, to be honest. She's got to go to university for at least 3 years to get a degree in English, and then she's got to go back to do a teaching qualification. Now, if she was an IT teacher, I might understand it a bit more, purely because in the Bells of St John, she was downloaded with a load of extra IT knowledge. She knows everything about computers now, apparently, even though that never comes up again. So if she was an IT teacher, I would understand it more because at least she could have got a degree on a fast track motion with the Doctor's help because she already knew everything about computers. So she could have been teaching kids coding at school. That would be fine. I would accept that. But she's not. She's teaching English. But the teaching qualification, she still very much would have had to go and get. You can't fast track that sort of nonsense. That's wrong. I don't agree with that. It's just an issue for me because so many TV characters, main characters, always get these things that they don't actually earn. Just because we like them because they're a main character doesn't mean that they've earned a qualification in something. It's like an honorary degree or an honorary doctorate. I don't agree with those either. Do the fucking work. But it's happened a lot in TV where people get a mass media empire over the course of a few months, or they'll get a teaching qualification and an English degree and a job as a teacher in a secondary school with no work. Like they didn't do anything to actually earn it. I don't need to see her going to university, but just have one random conversation with her and the Doctor about how her uni degree is going. Something to show that she's actually putting in some work here, because she's not. Every time we see her, she's just at the house. That's it. She's never at uni, never even mentioned uni. And she's been travelling with the Doctor for a few years now, but this is contemporary. This isn't in the future. They literally say that it's contemporary in here. So this was actually 2013, which means that there is no time for Clara to get a qualification in teaching and to get a job as a teacher. I don't like that. That's something that really bothers me every time I watch this episode and series 8 and 9 with Clara. Not that she actually does much teaching in series 9. I think she's in the first episode in the school and then the rest of it she's just never seen again at a school. Okay, so rant over on that. Let's rant about something else. The Doctor says that he remembers the moment when the time tunnel appears. Well, almost remembers it. And that is evidence and proof that the Doctor never destroyed Gallifrey. This, what happens in this episode, always happened, okay? This is what always happened. The Doctor never destroyed Gallifrey because the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor were always brought in. It doesn't make sense any other way anyway, because the moment showed the War Doctor what his potential future would be if he goes through with this, which shows 10 and 11. Except he never went through with it because 10 and 11. The fact the Doctor actually remembers the time tunnel, even remotely, shows that it always happened that way. Gallifrey was never destroyed. The Doctor never did it. He just thought he did. And I do like at the ending where the War Doctor actually explicitly says, I'm not going to remember this, am I? I'm going to think that I actually did it, because it keeps the timeline intact. It didn't need to happen. He just needed to think it happened, which is what happened. I do love the 3 Doctors together though. It reminds me of the 3 Doctors where they're all bickering and stuff. It's fun. I love those moments. I also love seeing inside the Gallifrey War Room and the link back to the end of time where the General mentions that the High Council's plan has failed and they're all that's left, sort of thing. So it does link into the end of time as well to show that the Rassilon thing still happened, but it failed, as we know, and so they're trying this now instead. The photos in the Black Archive of all of the different companions, I do wish that we'd had a nice pan across that wall so that we could actually have seen it properly, but I do like that. It was a nice touch to, again, celebrate the 50th anniversary of the show, even though a lot of those pictures would not have been accessible to UNIT, and I don't understand how they even knew about some of the companions, but I'll leave it. I'll just accept it for what it is, because expanded media and adventures we never see or read or hear. Maybe companions who were only off-world or in the past or future did at some point have adventures during the UNIT era and therefore were able to be collected by UNIT for the Black Archive purposes. This episode feels like Clara's moment to save the War Doctor, considering she didn't need to save him during the Great Intelligence's thing in the last episode, which still confuses me because I feel like if you want to kill the Doctor, killing him during the Time War is probably the easiest bet. Just tell a Dalek where he is. But her little conversation with him and how she helps 11 and 10 to stop the destruction of Gallifrey, it does feel like it's her time to save the War Doctor. However, on that, I don't like this, that she's involved in this. I don't think she should have been on Gallifrey. I think she should have stayed with UNIT at the time and not gone to Gallifrey for it, because I really don't like that Clara is so integral to the Doctor storyline. I like when companions are important to the Doctor, but he views everyone as important. The fact that she is so very vital irks me to no end. The Impossible Girl thing, okay, I can get on board with that. Little Clara splinters, most of the time he doesn't see or hear her, but she managed to save him. Fine. This is a step too far for me because it just makes her way too important. She's the reason Gallifrey wasn't destroyed. Clara ended the Time War by talking to the Doctor and reminding him of who he is. I just think that wasn't necessary. I think the Doctors should have done it themselves. I don't like her being so integral to his timeline. Honestly, if she was someone like Susan or Jenny even, I would be fine with that because they're Time Lords as well and they have a stake in Gallifrey, and it would make more sense to me that way and I'd be fine with it. Or any of the Doctor's other children or grandchildren that we've never met before. I'd have been fine with that, but I just don't like it being Clara. I just don't. She's had her time being the most important person in the Doctor's life. I don't feel like it needs to happen more and more and more as we carry on. Okay, I have more notes, but I'm going to wrap it up. The last thing I want to say though is that I do like at the end when the credits roll. For some reason, Billie Piper's credited as Rose rather than the moment, and I don't understand that because she literally says in the episode she's not Rose Tyler, but whatever. But as the credits roll and you get all the flashes of the Doctor's faces throughout, I love that. Except they didn't use Capaldi and I'm really upset by that because he was technically in the episode. I would have loved if right at the very end of the credits there had been a very quick flash of Capaldi. I'd have loved that. That would have been great. But I like what we got in general. Speaking of Capaldi though, 12 was right there doing all the TARDIS stuff with all the other Doctors, which meant that the 11th Doctor would have known that he was there. The 11th Doctor remembers this after this episode, so he knows what happened with Gallifrey. So he would have known that his 12th incarnation was there as well. Technically his 14th? But yeah, he would have known that he was there. So why does he in the next episode think that he's going to die? Why does he think, oh, I've spent all my regenerations, I'm going to die now? Doesn't make sense when 12 was there as well. The guy in the war room even said, Noza, all 13! Fucking epic moment. But he even said that, so clearly they knew that the 12th Doctor was there. Anyway, I love this episode and I think it's brilliant. I will gladly rewatch this episode and I can look past all of its flaws to put it into NewWho. It's an anniversary special, it should be in NewWho. It is Doctor Who. And the MVP for the Day of the Doctor is Osgood. Petronella Osgood is all of us and we are her and I love her. She's adorable. Next up is the Time of the Doctor. Finally, we're on to the last episode of this series. This got a 4 and I do like it, but I also don't like it. I feel like they could have cut off a good 10 minutes at the beginning with all the naked nonsense. The naked church doesn't make sense if they're all wearing holographic clothing and if everyone else at church is wearing normal clothing. I don't understand the whole point of the nakedness at the beginning. It was unnecessary. They should have just jumped straight into the episode, to be honest. I do, however, love the earlier scenes with handles with the Doctor. Where he got handles from, I've no fucking clue because that's not explained anywhere. I'm hoping it's in the Trenzalore book. But when he was going to the Dalek ship with the Dalek eye stalk and going into the Sideman ship with Handel's head, I think that was a really funny way to start the episode. That is a nice comedy way of starting an episode. Not the naked thing. That was stupid and pointless. Tasha Lem is a fun new character to add into the Whoniverse. I don't like the fact that she's basically just River Song with a different face. The flirting with her and the Doctor was too much because, again, I don't like the 11th Doctor in his horny phase. So the flirting was too much and she just fills up with a song. I don't like it. With Tasha, later on the episode we find out that she's a Dalek drone, and I really wish that we hadn't seen the Dalek drones in the scene just before we find out about her, because they would have been a big reveal, a big surprise. And instead we know that she's a Dalek drone already because we've seen the Dalek drones on everyone else, including the Silence somehow. I don't know how the Daleks got hold of the Silence to do that, but somehow they did. It would have been so much more impactful with that scene if we hadn't have seen already that they're Dalek drones, if she had been the first one that we saw as a Dalek drone, but whatever. While I do like the fact that the crack from 11's first episode appears again in his last, I don't feel like it was necessary or natural. I feel like it was forced into narrative rather than naturally included. The cracks in time and space were because the TARDIS exploded, which happened in series 5. That's done now. So why is it back and suddenly it's not the TARDIS exploding, it's Gallifrey in another dimension? It doesn't work for me. It just feels forced. The oldest question in the universe hidden in plain sight being Doctor Who still doesn't make sense. Not to mention, as well, Clara's whole speech to the Time Lords to get them to give the Doctor new regeneration cycle means nothing in retrospect. At all. It's such a cute moment that she's begging for the Doctor's life and telling the Time Lords to help him. His name is the Doctor, that's all you need to know. That was a lovely little moment, and now it's ruined by the Timeless Child nonsense. Because he didn't need those regenerations. He could have just regenerated anyway. And also, in the last episode, he saw himself as 12, so he should know that he's going to regardless. The ultra-destructive way that 11 regenerates at first, I don't like the weird swap that his destructive one is first and then the non-destructive one is the second one. But that makes me really believe the theory that the Golden Glow regenerations were a Time War invention so that they could destroy their enemies as they do it, because he destroys quite a few Daleks with that energy. So I do believe that theory. As I say, I don't like the swap that the destructive one comes first and then the small one comes second, because that doesn't make any sense. The destructive one is what changes their body. So why did he just go back to being young Matt Smith? They wanted to have their cake and eat it too again, and I don't agree with that. Mr. Stephen Moffat, that's wrong. No. Either have the big speech about how never tell me the rules and then all this, and then he turns into 12, or have the soft moment in the TARDIS and he turns into 12. You can't have both. I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me having both. He wanted the soft, sweet moment where he says goodbye to Amy and whatnot. Oh, Amy coming downstairs to the long song is a lovely moment. Even though that song didn't appear until 2 episodes after Amy had left. It's a lovely, really powerful moment. But justice for Rory, because where the fuck was Rory? But you can't have that moment and also have the big destructive moment where he does a big speech and then goes golden glowy, because that's not how regeneration works. The soft one is the first one because it started, and then the big one is the regeneration. So that doesn't make any sense, Mr. Moffat. I'm sorry. Anyway, he did regenerate and 12 didn't like the colour of his kidneys. So that's new. How does he even know what colour his kidneys are anyway? It's weird. But this episode I'm going to put into upgrade in progress. I think it's not a great Christmas episode because it focuses too much on the Doctor and his regeneration and all of that. It's too much of a Doctor Who series episode rather than a Christmas episode, so it's not a good Christmas episode. It was a decent finale for the 11th Doctor, but it should have been shorter really, because they should have cut off the naked church stuff and all of that nonsense at the beginning with Clara's family, and they should have picked one of the regenerations. Pick one. You can't have both. I know that because I have many, many quotes of the season and I have to squinch it down to just a few. I think I've got 6 today. That's as many as I'll allow myself. I won't go beyond 6. But anyway, I think it was okay. It wasn't as good as it could have been because they focused on too many different things at once. And I don't think it was necessary to have the Daleks, the Angels, the Cybermen, the Silence, everything in the same episode. I'm actually annoyed with the amount of times that the Doctor regenerates in a big ending episode. I miss it in the classic series where they would just regenerate halfway through a year. Have a season that's half one Doctor, half another. I don't care. I don't want a big bombastic end episode for every Doctor. Sometimes it should just be like the first Doctor where the body wears thin, or like the third Doctor where he dies from radiation poisoning. But it's not some massive thing. It's a big sacrifice, sure, but it's not some massive epic event television episode. It just was. The 5th Doctor's death was a big event thing where he basically crashed into a planet and was poisoned and saved Perry from the poison death and died himself. That felt a bit more of an epic episode one to do with the Caves of Androzani, but we don't need it for every regeneration episode. I'm sorry, we just don't. And I'm sick of seeing it. I just want it to be normal again. Anyway, it's an upgrade in progress, it's fine. And the MVP of the episode is Handles. I don't personally count Handles as a companion because he's a robot head, not an actual living thing, but If you do count him, then he's the Doctor's longest running companion, so that Cyberman head survived at least 900 years, so. But that is it. That, at last, is Series 7 completely tier listed. And this will probably, hopefully, be my longest tier list video. And I'm hoping that all the rest of them will be much shorter than this. It's not going to happen. I know it's not because I talk too much. But that is Series 7 done. And it's better than I thought with regards to the tiers. I honestly think that the tiers make it look better than I think it is. I am questioning 2 of them being in Fantastic. I feel like they should actually be a tier lower, but I don't want to change it now. So this is what it is. I would still say that Series 7 is probably my worst series of Doctor Who. It's very disjointed, very odd. The Doctor doesn't feel like the Doctor for half of it with regards to certain personality traits. Actually 2/3 of it. But yeah, it's not terrible. There's still some good episodes in there, including the 50th anniversary. But obviously, if the 50th anniversary hadn't have happened, there wouldn't be anything in NewWho. Yeah, the fact that there's 2 forgettable episodes in here. Actually, to be fair, the Bells of St. John should be in Doctor Who as well, to be honest. I forget that one all the time. And there's also 3 in Scarra Sewers. So it's not the best season. But let's look at the season stats. The most common score for any episode was a 4, and the season average was a 3.19. So it's still above average overall by just a tiny little bit, so that's fine. Now, as I did say before, I've got 6 quotes of the season for this one, so let's go for it. The first one is from a town called Mercy, and it's when the Doctor is the new marshal of the town, and the crowd gathers to try and take Jex away and get him to cross the line to die, and the Doctor wants to prevent that from happening. And the Doctor says, I'm guessing you've never shot anyone before, have you? But that's how all this started. Jex turned someone into a weapon. Now that same story is going to make you a killer too. Don't you see? Violence doesn't end violence, it extends it. And I don't think you want to do this. I don't think you want to become that man. I just like that one because there is a cycle of violence, and I like when characters like the Doctor call it out. The next quote is from The Rings of Bucketon, and it is when Mary gets taken by the little beam thing and the Doctor starts running, but in the opposite direction, and Clara follows him. And she says, why are we walking away? We can't just walk away. This is my fault. I talked her into doing this. And the Doctor says, listen, there's one thing you need to know about travelling with me. Well, one thing apart from the blue box and the 2 hearts. We don't walk away. And later in the episode, he says, no, we don't walk away. But when we're holding on to something precious, we run. We run and run as fast as we can. And we don't stop running until we're out from under the shadow. So that's technically 2 quotes from different scenes that I've smushed together, because I like when Clara said we can't just walk away and the Doctor saying no, we're not walking away. But I also like later on when he says no, we don't walk away, but when we're holding on to something that's precious, we have to run and we have to protect that thing. And that's obviously later on when he's telling Clara to take Mary and go, and he's going to fight the sun god thing. I think the 2 quotes work together, even though it's entire opposites, but it is showing that things have grey areas, and I think that's a good quote, to be honest, for the Doctor. The next quote comes from The Day of the Doctor, and this is in the barn when the Doctors are about to push the button and the 11th Doctor asks Clara why she keeps looking at him in a funny way. And she says, look at you, the 3 of you, the warrior, the hero, and you. And the 11th Doctor says, and what am I? And Clara says, have you really forgotten? We've got enough warriors. Any old idiot can be a hero. Be a doctor. You told me the name you chose was a promise. What was the promise? And the 10th Doctor says, never cruel or cowardly. And the War Doctor says, never give up, never give in. I always feel like there should be a 3rd thing tagged on to the end of there, but there's not. But I like that quote because it's just the whole name of the Doctor thing. It's the promise of the Doctor. I quite like that. And the final quote of the season comes from The Time of the Doctor, and it's when the Doctor and Clara first appear in the town of Christmas with the truth field, and the Doctor tells a couple of the townspeople, I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey. I stole a time machine and ran away, and I've been flouting the principal law of my own people ever since. Because if that doesn't sum up the Doctor, then I don't know what does. But that's it. That is it for my tier list. I'm going to end it here because this has already been about 2 hours of my life chatting, and editing this is going to take 5 weeks. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where would you have placed things? Do you love Series 7? Do you think it's a bit average, or do you really dislike it like I do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next time for Series 8.